All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind. But we're going to have a show.
And welcome. This is our post-Thanksgiving. Thank you. I can tell you're all well-fed and happy after the Thanksgiving weekend, our long weekend, and it was
everything is expensive.
Everything is expensive, and everything is awful, and there is no one, and there's no group I'd rather hold hands with through the awfulness than this group right here. I'm talking about, of course, Kim McAllister, the
Kim, how are you?
Wonderful news person that we dragged over here from KGO Radio, and Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
The ninja tech guy who, in addition to turning his private home into a Dave & Buster's, makes time for 7 or 8 jobs that he works simultaneously. It's pretty impressive, I know.
What?
I'm saying it may be the new model to make ends meet in America. You should look at Tony as a role model. Don't look at him as an outlier.
No.
Yeah. I am presiding over a show that has special guest Sarah Kendzior joins us. She is just a gift, and she'll join us in hour 2. And the other gift today comes in hour 1. It's Gary Dietrich. Never has Dietrich seen the stuff that's coming out of the current American administration. This is unprecedented. I mean, I'm leaving all the corruption aside. There is unbridled corruption in not only in the Trump family, but among all of his acolytes and his billionaires, boys club that is his cabinet and public officials. I'm talking about his pugnacious, aggressive, warlike approach to American diplomacy. And pugnacious is a ding word, you're right. But I will say that he may not even have been the author of the latest war crimes associated with, and I'll call them war crimes because if they are, and it would seem as though they are demonstrably in evidence, they are evidence of criminal acts of inhumanity and acts that qualify as war crimes. I'm talking about the double tap hits on these Venezuelan vessels. People are hanging on to wreckage that's floating there in the water, and you double back and take them out. That's a war crime. We'll get to that. But the aggressive posture toward the asylum claims of so many, and now the tragic gift that was given the Trump administration late in the show, I think it was Wednesday when we were on, it was breaking news that these 2 National Guard troops had been hit by gunfire.
Right.
Turns out this Afghani who'd worked with the CIA turned and went rogue and took out these 2 National Guard troops. The tragic pivot is to end asylum for all those seeking it, particularly those from these, as is termed by the Trump administration, third world countries. So, in other words, policy that was sought anyway by this administration is gifted to them in this tragic gift wrapping that appeared on Wednesday from this shooter. He's Afghani, great, cutting off all asylum to those seeking it from Afghanistan and beyond. So we're going to get to all of this. And then, of course, Kristi Noem, the cosplaying head of, I believe it's the biggest agency in Washington, whose budget has just been supercharged by the latest congressional big, beautiful bill thing that they passed. She is telling more lies than we can stack up today, but we will review a few of them. Of course, the Afghani tragedy, the tragedy of this shooting of the National Guard troops, is being used and politicized immediately, but the fact that it's being used and politicized may not even be the biggest story out of Kristi Noem. It is being lied about in such an aggressive fashion that Noem is caught in these lies on live television as she begins to sort of blame, which is the go-to move, the Biden administration for all the ills of America in this moment. So I'm going to play you that in just a second. I do want to mention that we have our meetup tonight. It is our holiday hoedown, throwdown, or is it a showdown?
It's a throwdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a throwdown tonight at 6 o'clock Pacific time. Everyone, I want to make this clear, should have received their links already. If you didn't receive your link, please contact us. You know the address, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. That was the address you were given to confirm, and if you confirm there, you should have received that link for tonight. And again, if you want to join us, you can shoehorn yourself into this event last second. It's 2 hours, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock in the East for 2 hours. $50 donation via PayPal. PayPal is underneath all of our videos. The PayPal link is also at themarkthompsonshow.com. But under all our videos is the PayPal link. So you go to PayPal, you donate $50, and you can note HH or Holiday Hoedown. Anyway, send an email to confirm that you did that. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. But more importantly, we've got plenty of people coming to this thing tonight. But this virtual meetup, you should have received a link. So once it starts, I am not paying attention to the emails anymore. So I need you to let me know if you haven't received it. So that's the housekeeping. Anything else? Kim, how was your holiday weekend?
It was really nice. We got the Christmas tree yesterday, so things are going well over here. I had a.
Do you go with a big ornament-filled Christmas tree, or do you?
Oh, it's packed. Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah. It's right now. It's naked, but it will be packed.
Yeah. Natural tree. Then you go for a natural tree, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you don't like the.
No,
how about you, Tony? I'm guessing. Do you do a tree?
No, I have in the past, but I live
That's
alone.
my guess. All right.
I'm a lone hermit, so no.
Well,
but if I do, it is a real tree, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, it's like, what do you, unless you're having guests over, why have they, maybe unless it makes you feel good to come out and
I feel nothing.
There's a holiday blend of Coachella Valley coffee. I'm drinking it.
Oh, that's good
and I'm
stuff.
drinking it from my new favorite mug. You know, I wanted this mug. There's the holiday blend and gift sets. And if you want to go there, CoachellaValley.com, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, grab this coffee. It's the best coffee I've ever tasted. And there's also tea and spices that are magnificent. It's a boutique roastery. So this isn't, some factory where they're just crapping this stuff out. This is a really curated blend of coffees, all hand roasted. Teas as well, and spices. You can check them out there at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. But what I was getting to is use our discount code MARKT at checkout for 10% off, and you will enjoy the. This CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is so good, but it's in my new favorite mug, the Project 1984.5 mug. You know that's something I really value. The reason I like Project 1984.5, and I'm wearing the t-shirt as well, it's at getmarkmerch.com, and I'm not just pitching our merch. I think what you're getting from this administration, the American administration, is Orwellian. You're getting claims of happy days are here again, inflation is cured, America's got a great standing in the world again. You're getting lies on top of lies about major international events. Donald Trump is saying Ukraine was the aggressor, started the Russian-Ukraine conflict. This is Orwellian. This is Big Brother telling you stuff that you know not to be true. that Donald Trump won the election in 2020. I mean, this is a continued drumbeat of lies and disinformation that, to me, conforms to the 1984 vision of George Orwell. So that's one of the reasons I love the Project 1984.5. So, again, it's at getmarkmerch.com, so go for it. All right, let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, there's the mug. Thank you, Tony, for... the mug is something I really wanted to get going for a while, so Courtney finally got it up there on the website. Thanks to everybody who sent us emails, some very nice emails. Somebody sent me a very nice email over the weekend saying how important the show was and how special the show was and how special I am, et cetera. And it was, they said, please share this. And it was really this lovely, but as you know, Kim, we don't share positive emails like that. No,
I've received a lot of positive letters.
No, I don't.
No.
So it was very funny to read, well, please share this. No.
There has to be a but.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I shared disparaging emails, people who were angry, like when Richard Delamater went off about about the meetups and all that. That's the stuff we love.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally love, and my heart is touched by the other emails that describe the show. And I appreciate all those emails. All right, so I wanted to get into
The Mark Thompson Show.
what happened late Wednesday. The D.C. National Guard, the D.C. National Guard that shouldn't be in D.C. to begin with. 2 of those troops hit by gunfire. Here is a summary of what happened and where we are.
It was a shocking and horrific attack on 2 National Guard members just blocks from the White House, leaving 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom dead.
She's just passed away. She's no longer with us.
And Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf fighting for his life. The suspect in the shooting, 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakhanwal, an Afghan national. The suspect's identity and background sparking renewed criticism over the Biden administration's chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. And the United States' effort to help Afghans who had assisted America's military during the 20-year conflict. Sources say Lakhanwal was a highly trained member of an elite Afghan counterterrorism force known as the Zero Units, or National Strike Units.
The men and women of these units were going after the hardest terrorist threats.
Gita Bakshi was a CIA counterterrorism operations officer who worked side by side with those units in Afghanistan.
Over the course of that 20-year war, they saved countless American lives, often at great personal risk.
She now runs a nonprofit helping those who made it to the United States establish new lives. Bakshi says she was horrified by the attack on the National Guard, as are those she has helped settle.
We work with a part of this community that is responsible, that wants to be here, that believes in American values. I believe that Afghans who came here through Operations Allied Welcome, and since that time, need to be revetted.
Many of those fighters were hailed as heroes and brought to the United States under a Biden-era program.
We had bullets flying over our heads.
Sam Aronson, a former State Department official, heartbroken for the National Guard victims, spent 10 days in Kabul at the height of the chaotic withdrawal, conducting quick checks on Afghans before they were sent to third countries for further vetting.
These people spent anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, in some cases months, at these third country lily pad sites. That's where the extensive vetting took place.
But with President Trump back in office and this horrific attack, Afghan nationals are facing renewed scrutiny.
We are going through the databases to make sure that no known or suspected terrorists enter this country to harm our nation.
Sources tell ABC News that Lakhanwal was formally granted asylum this April under the Trump administration.
We have 8,000 individuals that have been granted asylum since President Trump has been in office.
But he had an expired work permit and could no longer afford rent and food and support his wife and 5 children. While authorities work to determine a potential motive in the wake of Wednesday's shooting, President Trump saying his administration will conduct a full review of all Afghan nationals who entered the U.S. under President Biden.
And Martha joins us now. So, Martha, how surprised are your military and intelligence sources that somebody who worked so closely with the CIA for so long in Afghanistan and moved here with his entire family would do something like this?
I think they are in complete shock and obviously horrified at what happened and the taking of the lives of 2 innocent National Guard members. But they are also concerned that the other Afghans here who are productive, who have jobs, who are doing the best they can, will be targeted by the administration.
It sure looks like that's the plan.
Well, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. I mean, that's why I was saying they paused all asylum claims from all Afghanis who are sometimes in the middle of or on the verge of a process that brings them legal residency to the U.S. What's interesting to me about this is it's the typical story from this crew, meaning they find a tragedy, they strip out the facts, and then they weaponize whatever's left to blame Biden. So you have this National Guard shooting in Washington, and you've got Kristi Noem, and I'll play it for you in a moment, going on this show. We just showed you a piece of it. That very same show. She also went on all the shows, Meet the Press and Face the Nation, etc., and talks about the fact that Biden is the reason that this guy got through. Well, this guy was an elite fighter. He was part of an elite paramilitary force, this Zero Unit, the Afghan Zero Unit. They operated directly under CIA instruction. These are some of the most vetted people there are. So you're going to hear her in a minute talk about, we've got a we're increasing the vetting process on all of these people, and just in general, Biden had this sort of loose to non-existent vetting process. That's just wrong. She talks about biometrics. The biometrics were in place. The intelligence cross-checks were in place. Again, this guy was part of this elite unit. Every database imaginable was used. He was a CIA officers praising him. He was a CIA asset. CIA officers praised this guy, and many like him, who helped American troops in Afghanistan and American military and intelligence operations in Afghanistan. So again, you're talking about somebody who is one of the most vetted people to come into this country, having gone rogue. And now, again, stripped of facts and blamed upon Joe Biden. Let's see Kristi Noem on the ABC This Week program. Go ahead, Tony, please.
Asylum by the Trump administration in April. So did you see any red flags?
If you remember, John.
Yeah, did you see any red flags?
John, all the information that was gathered on that vetting process was gathered under the Biden administration. His asylum claim application started under the Biden administration. That information was provided by them.
This is where she gets caught,
and the responsibility lies with them. And we need to know that and speak the truth of how this entire process happened so that we can fix it. That's what President Trump has been doing and dedicated to, is that when we look at people who deserve asylum, they have to be thoroughly vetted. They weren't under the last administration. That has completely changed under President Trump.
But again, he was granted asylum in April, so President Trump had already been in office for several months. You had been in office. Are you saying there was no vetting done by the Trump administration? You were simply relying on what had been done under the Biden administration? You did no vetting before granting him asylum?
The processes were put in place using information that was gathered during the application process that happened under Joe Biden. And that has been completely fixed. And new metrics and new processes have been added under President Trump. He immediately went to work, and we put in place under USCIS the new data and new information that can be gathered, such as communicating with governments, getting information from them, and making sure that biometric information and dates of service match up. Much of the information that was gathered and provided by the Biden administration wasn't thorough and wasn't done. And what kind of a crazy world is it when you have a president that allows millions of people to come into this country unvetted, not knowing who they are, from countries that perpetuate terrorism upon the United States? And when we saw during Operation Allies Welcome, was over close to 100,000 people that were allowed to come to the United States, that Joe Biden said, you know what, we'll vet them after they get here. We'll let them into our country, and then we'll vet them after they get here. And then they didn't do it. They didn't do a good job, and it wasn't complete and thorough, and that's what is being fixed right now.
Again, what the Biden administration said actually is that the vetting was done before they came to the United States. But let me ask you about another subject.
Well, I think if you watch what happened unfold,
but you just said that that's
you
what
watch people pull on.
Biden said. I know, but
you watch people load onto those planes.
They didn't come from those planes directly into the United States. But let me ask you about another question.
During that period of time.
There's a Washington Post report that one of those Venezuelan boats that was attacked by a U.S. missile, alleged drug boats, that a second missile was launched because there had been 2 survivors clinging to the wreckage.
This is a separate story. Just hit pause. You don't have to. We can double back to this. I want you to hear what she has to say. But I just want to button this out. You saw what happened, right? She blamed Biden. She claimed that the asylum and the vetting process to grant asylum was a Biden problem, even as the Trump administration in April of this year granted this guy asylum. So whatever vetting process there was initially with an Afghan pullout, when there was a chaotic, less than elegant, and you could even say disruptive, wildly disruptive exit from Afghanistan, there's been a lot of time to re-vet and to additionally look over those who are seeking asylum. That asylum that was granted in April was granted and presumably vetted from the new administration. They had been in office. Kristi Noem had been in office, as noted, as had all the Trump officials. You can't double back and then just say, oh, this is Biden's problem, unless you're saying, oh, we just rubber stamped whatever Biden had. Biden was vetting them for initial entry. You granted asylum. So that's one of the classic moves that's in this playbook. Now she's asked to weigh in on the Venezuelan double tap. And just because we played a little bit of it, I'll run it out, Tony, and then I'll get back to the National Guard.
I know this was obviously carried out by the Defense Department, but is the administration concerned here that may have violated the laws of war? I mean, was there an imminent threat posed by those people that were clinging to the wreckage of a boat that had already been struck?
Oh, John, that entire story is based on anonymous sources. So we see the press and we see that rag use anonymous sources all the time to print things that aren't true, that are lies, that are completely not based in reality. So I would not put any credibility to that story, to what was said. I have full faith and trust in this president and in this government to do the right thing to keep the American people safe. And I'm so grateful at the amount of work that has been done to stop those deadly drugs from getting into our country.
Yeah.
Just in several
more on that in a moment. Okay, thank you. I mean, the hymnal is so well worn. All right, now to Donald Trump talking about these shootings that occurred again late Wednesday and over the weekend. Here's his reaction. He called a reporter stupid for asking a question. Go ahead, Tony.
Okay. So you can cut that. Hello.
Mr. President, good to see you. Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
A question about this tragic shooting in Washington, D.C. U.S. officials say that the suspect worked very closely with the CIA in Afghanistan for years, that he was vetted, and the vetting came up clean.
He went cuckoo. I mean, he went nuts. And that happens, too. It happens too often with these people. You see them. But look, this is how they come in. This is how they're standing on top of each other. And that's an airplane. There was no vetting or anything. They came in unvetted. And we have a lot of others in this country. We're going to get them out. But they go cuckoo. Something happens to them.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here. and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked, there were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess.
Okay, thank you. The withdrawal from Afghanistan did have messy aspects to it, as I've noted along the way here, and as we noted at the time. And I would have done things differently. I mean, and, what do I know? Even with the little I know, I would have done a few things differently. That said, let's get back to the issue at hand. And the issue at hand is we strip out the facts and blame Biden. These people came in, there was no vetting. They were vetted, okay? But the vetting that was done to allow them in, and they were vetted before they came into the country. So again, that's the notion and the pictures they show you to and reinforce the notion, all these people on board this plane and they just dump them here in this country and we'll work out the vetting later. That's just not what happened. And more to the specific point with this shooter, he worked closely with the CIA. He was super vetted, ultra vetted. All the biometric data, all the cross-referencing on websites, that was done. And then his asylum was granted by the Trump administration in April. You can't dodge that, but they are. This guy wasn't vetted, the Biden let him in, and then it's then the word salad and the killing the clock, which Kristi Noem does as she goes on these various shows to get that narrative out that it was Biden's fault. So, look, the weaponization of this stuff is sort of where we are now, but this is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy on top of another tragedy that many of these Afghanis who legitimately risked their lives and would be executed were they to return to Afghanistan for being in league with the Americans, they will be affected by this because there is a full stop on the refugee process and on the asylum process with these refugees from Afghanistan. I want to talk more about this with Gary Dietrich. I've got other stuff to talk to Gary about as well. And Secretary Noem. Hey, Secretary Noem, this is from Debbie, and thank you with the $10 super chat. Y'all haven't busted anything. You haven't trusted anything Biden has done or said, but now you're saying you must have trusted Biden's vetting since y'all did nothing further, right? Yeah, it was a weird line she took where she goes, we just trusted the Biden process. She didn't use the word trust, but she said Biden did all the vetting, and then when we approved the asylum in April, the vetting process was that which was done under the Biden administration. Patently false, I think. But a review for asylum, I'm sure, was accompanied by additional vetting. Now, that the vetting process didn't reveal certain things about this guy, clearly that's true. And that the fact that this guy stepped off the curb mentally, in desperation, in anger, with some combination of all those things in his mind, opened fire on these National Guard troops, clearly that's true. So I don't know that any degree of vetting would have been able to reveal this.
If you say that there's anything that America did wrong, it sounds like you're making excuses for someone who opened fire on the National Guard. And that's not my intention at all. Wrong to kill someone, wrong to open fire. But here's this guy who put his life at risk for the United States. He comes here with his wife and his 5 kids, and we took his work permit away so we couldn't feed his kids. Now, I'm not saying I would kill anyone, but I can imagine the frustration and the fear when you're looking at 5 hungry kids and not being able to feed them.
Well,
I mean, obviously there's other ways to deal with it, but I'm just saying maybe we didn't do right by him.
Look, his frustration is born of a real thing, and his anger is born of an objective reality that produced the anger. I get that, and I also would suggest, and we can mention this to Gary, who has a good take on sort of the governmental aspects of taking these people in, and typically they're set up with some kind of temporary housing. There are Afghani communities around America that are there with support systems. But you're right. There should be some sort of permit issued that will allow this guy to make a living. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, at best, somebody who's going to be seeking assistance and on food lines. And at worst, somebody who gets so angry and frustrated that they open fire on American troops, which is what happened.
I want to know how many other of these folks that came in from Afghanistan don't have work permits or are being denied things or are not being treated fairly. And are we creating this problem?
Yeah. And CC Ryder is saying this. We don't know what his motive was, so let's not speculate until we get the facts. All right. Yes and no. I mean, I think you're right. Of course, we don't know what the motive was. But I think looking at his circumstance and speculating is safe. Okay. I get it. Nobody can actually be in his head. But I think it's fair to examine the situation with these various Afghani refugees and asylees and to stipulate to certain situations as Kim just did. So I both understand what you're saying, but I also would suggest it's, I think it's fair to look at the situation. I want to talk to Gary Dietrich next. Smash the like button if you would. Dietrich is up next
with
as
your iron rod.
We continue Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson? Smash it with your iron rod.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
I'm not gonna cry.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
Where are my weed smokers at?
I love it when you're angry.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Seriously, what the
This is no summer camp.
It was great. I loved it.
Right on, everybody. It's our episode after the Thanksgiving weekend, and I give thanks every year for this guy making time in his schedule to join us on Mondays. He is the political analyst for iHeartRadio, also across the CBS television stations. How about it for Gary Dietrich? Hello, sir.
Hey, Mark, and I just got to say, man, that is some kind of high-quality production value on that rejoin, brother. That's some good sounding stuff. You guys put some effort in on that.
A little overtime pays off. Thank you, sir. Hey, Gary Dietrich, I have so many things to ask you about. I'm going to start with this National Guard shooting and this Afghani refugee and asylee, as it turns out, granted asylum. And his vetting actually was done at a very high level. I mean, he'd worked with the CIA for a long time. So the narrative that's out there, Kristi Noem hitting the circuit this weekend with all the various weekend shows and saying this is a Biden administration problem in that this man was not vetted properly, that appears not to be the case from the standpoint of the fact that he was granted asylum in April, and so presumably some kind of additional vetting went on between the time that he was entering into the country and then also granted asylum. And as I say, he was part of this elite force that worked with the CIA, so he was vetted way more than the average Afghani refugee.
Well, Mark, I heard a couple of your comments here before I joined you guys. And, first off, let's just go back to the basics, and that is, how tragic is it that in our nation's capital, 2 of our own National Guardsmen were gunned down? I mean, that in and of itself, we cannot forget in the midst of all the recriminations and finger pointing that you knew in our political age was inevitably going to happen. Here's the second thing. You can bet that with the finest of fine-tooth combs, everything you're talking about, in other words, the specifics of that vetting process what happened back in Afghanistan for the vetting. I mean, certainly at the congressional investigation level, that is going to happen big time. I have no doubt about that. And I hope, and I think most people in Washington hope that's going to be a value, both now and going forward, right? The third part of it is, let's be honest about it. You're never going to be perfect. I don't care how much you vet. I mean, they could vet Mark Thompson and Gary Dietrich and still not find out that I actually like shredded wheat. You know what I mean? I mean, there's the point of the matter is, I was thinking about this, Mark, as I was getting ready to join you guys. Sadly, we've had members of the U.S. military that have opened fire, right, on their compadres. And I just think we have to remember these systems are not perfect. I don't care if it was Biden's, Trump, some hybrid of them. These sad things happen. You do your very best to make a system that is as thorough as you possibly can. And this is all going to come out. Who vetted what? When did it happen? The last thing I'll say is this, Mark. There's absolutely no denying at this point that the evacuation from Afghanistan and those who were brought with, those who were allowed to get out, those who unfortunately, as you know, remain and got stuck in Afghanistan. This was a messy, chaotic process that was done very, very short notice and very quickly, as you know. So in some ways, and then of course when some of the Afghanis came to the U.S., there was a certain amount of resentment about that whole process and how many should we let in. And I think it's just been a big mess since that whole Afghani evacuation.
Well, this of course brings all of that back up. And as I was saying before you joined, I had problems with the way it was done. I loved that we got out of Afghanistan. If you Google the Afghanistan papers, you know that many people, I'm talking about President Obama, who was the great Democratic hope, with sort of an even-handed view of the world, whatever the vision was of Obama, and those who were associated with the Afghanistan situation prior to Obama, they all agreed. And read these Afghanistan papers. There was no end there. There was no gaining any sort of real momentum and traction in terms of bringing the kind of civil liberties to Afghanistan and the Afghani people that would be the American ideal, et cetera. They spoke about the fact that essentially it was just this bottomless pit of money and of humanity that was a loser. And so I think getting out of Afghanistan was a great thing, but the way it was done, yes, had huge problems. So it sounds to me like you're saying, I guess what would and should be said is what you've just said, which is when you have an event like this isn't the kind of thing that you're going to be able to notice and pick up in most vetting processes. This is like when the shooter opens fire in any number of situations in America where you hear the neighbors say, oh, he's a quiet guy, always got along with everybody, I'm really surprised. In other words, there's just, when somebody really steps off the curb mentally like this and uses this moment for all their aggression and hostility, whatever it might be, frustration, there's no really picking that up in a vetting process. But that's not what's said. What's said is, this is the Biden administration's fault. Is that just the politics of today?
Yeah, sadly, I think that's true, Mark. And that has no value in this, of course. There's absolutely zero value in that. Blaming either side at this point. What needs to happen is two things. What we talked about, what I mentioned previously, which was the vetting process itself needs a thorough going over, right? What can be learned about this, about how that process needs to be improved? And secondly, there have been press reports about the fact that this individual was, quote unquote, radicalized after they got here to the U.S. That's going to be another important aspect of this. What kind of context, what kind of outreach is being done by terrorist organizations, by nefarious, nation states to get in touch with people from that part of the world once they get to the U.S. to then begin a recruitment process of them, right? That's something that really hasn't been talked about much. It was referenced right after the shooting about sort of where did he kind of go south or sideways, or as you say, step off the curb. We don't know as much about that as we probably should, and hopefully will in the days and weeks going forward.
It's fair to say, though, that if this guy was radicalized, and this is something that Kristi Noem was saying, and I feel as though Kristi Noem was caught in a lot of very specious arguments and, frankly, lies in her conversation with Jonathan Karl. I mean, and here's one of them. If he was radicalized, as she said on these shows here in this country, after he entered this country, after serving the country and alongside CIA officers so nobly in Afghanistan, that would have been picked up in a vetting process. So I think it's fair to say to the Trump administration, again, this is my disposition. I'd like to hear maybe, your perhaps more objective reality. I think it's fair to say, hey, guys, if he was radicalized inside this country, an additional vetting process prior to you granting him asylum under your presidency and your administration would have revealed that. Clearly, you didn't do that.
Yeah, well, I think, there's going to be a huge microscope on this. Was there a second vetting process? And it was once he arrived and then was granted asylum. The mechanics of all that is going to be broken down. There might be shared blame from the original vetting back in Afghanistan and the Trump administration vetting. There might be, who knows, blame on one side or the other. No blame. No, we did it all. And this didn't pop up. I mean, that's possible as well. But I certainly think that what is going to happen is the bright light of especially, again, of the House and Senate Intelligence and committees, et cetera, are going to shine on this, because this is going to be seen clearly as absolutely unacceptable to have what was a clear asset and ally of the United States just several years ago turn on American troops.
Now to Venezuela and these Venezuelan boats that have been the victims of drone strikes and American airstrikes. They've suggested, the Pentagon has, that these are drug runners. There hasn't been a lot of evidence, but maybe they were. But there's also been, just alongside, I'll mention, there has been statements from those who are like the wives. I've read 2 different wives of fishermen who didn't come back, and they feel they're angry at the U.S. to the point that they want to sue the United States. They want some kind of satisfaction in terms of recognizing that the United States killed their husband. So again, it's sort of against that backdrop that we learned this, that there's this what's called a double tap strike on this boat, where the boat is hit by fire and there are survivors from the initial blast floating helplessly in the water, and that Pete Hegseth had ordered the additional strike to take them out. Can you speak to this? It's really becoming something of a conversation worldwide as a war crime.
Yeah. Well, you hit on, we won't spend too much time on your first point, which is, the whole notion of doing this to begin with, right? Taking people out in international waters, not waiting till they get near, U.S. territorial waters even to do that. That whole debate continues. There's a larger debate, which I'll just insert quickly here, about, the Maduro regime. That looks, by the way, like that larger question of Maduro and his survivability politically in Venezuela is becoming more and more tenuous. The notion that he's going to be able to weather this storm, saber rattling against the United States. There's a lot of people distancing themselves, even traditional Venezuelan allies, who's saying, we're not going to back this dude anymore. So we'll see where that all ends up politically. That's really the big backdrop to all this, of course, Mark, is that this interdiction of these drugs is really about bringing down Maduro ultimately. That's the backdrop of this. And then lastly, to your point, the specific incident is problematic about the so-called second strike. And because, for people that are wondering, even in combat scenarios, right, if you have people that say you blew up a tank or whatever, your enemy, right, and we don't know where these guys were at, but people come out, wave the white flag or hands up or whatever. I mean, international order sort of says you don't just gun those people down, right? They're taking prisoners of war, et cetera, et cetera. That's what this concern is about. If Hegseth ordered this, there's going to be a whole lot, there already are, of course, a whole lot of question marks about it. By the way, not just on the anti-Hegseth, anti-Trump side, but there will definitely be GOP members of Congress that raise this substantially as well.
The report out of Washington is that the order came from Hegseth to kill all passengers aboard this boat suspected of ferrying drugs in the Caribbean. And Admiral Mitch Bradley made the order for the second strike, not Defense Secretary Hegseth, is the latest word from the White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt. This is the quote: Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. Well, the threat to the United States of America, I think, may be more than just a little reach. She said also the strike was, quote, conducted in self-defense to protect Americans and vital United States interests, and that President Donald Trump has a right to take them out if they are threatening the United States of America. I'd suggest her rhetoric gets a little ahead of the reality on the ground or on the seas, right?
Well, yeah, and that's right, Mark. And I mean, she's of course running a lot of political cover. The reality of this, from a factual point of view, is, again, what information was given? If the admiral was the one who made the call, what information was he given? For example, was the boat just damaged, but it wasn't destroyed, and his orders were to destroy it? I mean, we don't have a lot of the specific facts about this, and I certainly would not want to see an admiral or a military get hung out to dry over politics, right? I mean, we need to know what the facts are. That will certainly be investigated, and the military itself will do a thorough investigation, step by step, second by second. What was the hit? What and now we have such spectacular ability to monitor these things, from satellites, from everything else, that I'm sure they'll be able to see, was the boat only partially damaged, so the order was given to go ahead and destroy it, and that's how they died. I mean, there's all kinds of conflicting reports. Some are that just these individuals were out in the water, not, the boat didn't exist anymore. We're going to find out for sure.
I think it worth noting that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, who in my judgment shouldn't be allowed on a tour of the Pentagon, much less running the Pentagon, put this out over the weekend. It's a cartoon. This is from the Department of Defense's head guy, Pete Hegseth. It's a cartoon of like a mutant ninja turtle, for those who are just listening and not watching, standing on the strut of a, American helicopter, presumably, firing at narco-terrorists below. It says Franklin targets narco-terrorists. It's a cartoon with this, Franklin shooting these, what are they, RPGs or whatever, down at the at the boats below. It's astounding to me. This is from the Department of Defense head. He posted this. Thoughts?
Well, I think, how do I say this? I mean, the cartoonization, can I make up a word? There's no place for that stuff at this level of politics, number one. And secondly, when it comes to life and death matters. This has become, sadly, Mark, and I really hope it's very, very short-lived, this sort of, cartoonish characterization of politics and of serious issues. And it's not just, sadly, it really was, most people attribute it kind of originated by the Trump team, but it's now been widely adopted, as you know, sadly, in other circles. Gavin Newsom's communication shop has gotten into some of this kind of stuff. I just think it's demeaning politically. I think it's demeaning to people personally and professionally, and it's certainly below our highest levels of leadership in our country and our states. To me, it really is degrading, really, of how significant and important these debates and these issues and these lives are. And I think there's no place for it.
I just think of someone like yourself who has dealt at the highest levels with conversations around politics and around policy and around government. And to see it reduced to trolling about, as you suggest, this chaotic, aggressive taking of lives, it's and I'd suggest kind of in service of something else, which is a teetering Venezuela government being a part of a regime change that clearly the Trump administration wants. But again, that's sort of thinking in the a few moves ahead. But just the trolling in this way, it so destroys any kind of elevated notion of policy, of strategy, of the delicate balance that has to be weighed in so much of this decision making. The last thing I wanted to get your thought on is associated with, well, it's the second to last thing, actually. The flights that were, Tony, do you have that? The flight, this is on Meet the Press, the flights that were containing at the time all of these deportees and detainees, and the back and forth now, the judge has called Noem's policy, and Noem personally, I think, on some level in this judgment, a contempt of court allegation, essentially, in directly contramanding or what's the word, going against the judge's order, which is to bring the planes back. I don't care where they are; they should be back. Run a little bit of her on Meet the Press on this.
Filing in federal court this week, the Justice Department said that when the administration was ordered back in March to stop sending detained migrants to a mega prison in El Salvador, you personally made the final call to continue the flights anyway. Is that correct? Do you acknowledge that?
You know, we have court filings going on and decisions that are going forward. I'll let them continue to play through that process.
But did you make that
I'm
call?
proud of President Trump and his leadership and the decisions that we have made. And the decisions that are made on deportations, where flights go and when they go, are my decision at the Department of Homeland Security. And we will continue to do the right thing and ensure that dangerous criminals are removed.
So that you're saying that it was your decision. It sounds like the judge wanted to ensure that people were given due process. He said very clearly, quote, any plane containing these folks that is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, but those people need to be returned to the United States. However that's accomplished, I leave to you. But this is something that you need to make sure is complied with immediately. Did you defy the court's order, Madam Secretary?
No, Kristen, and that's one of the things that we continue to face across this country is activist judges who are using radical decisions that have no standing and no grounds to try to stop what President Trump is doing to protect America and to keep us safe. So we'll continue to do the right thing, continue to work and protect Americans, no matter what radical judge comes out and tries to stop us. We'll do
so
the
it's
right
the radical
thing and know that we're
judges,
on the side
Gary, that are doing this, and so it sounds as though the radical judgments are not those that Kristi Noem, anyway, in this administration feels necessarily. And you know, Emile Beauvais basically said that after the judge's decision, he was being considered for a federal judgeship. Indeed, you know the story on that. So, give me a thought on this.
Yeah, Mark, I think. You know, we've talked about this a couple times and a little bit, seems like in the way back, although it's probably just in the last few months. But, you know, the challenge right now with the American judiciary and its relationship to the executive branch and frankly, even the legislative branches of our government is becoming really problematic. And it really centers around, as you know, individual judges issuing rulings that have national standing, you know, and that is something that's really being tested. The appeals courts, as you know, are overturning many of these at various points. The Supreme Court is calling some of this into question. And so, you know, Noem was clearly stuck right there. I mean, she said, I'm the one who ultimately makes the call. But then when asked, did you the specifics about that flight, she said no. So, you know, she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on this thing. There's no question about it. Who actually made the call? Go ahead with the flights, right? I mean, she at one point said yes, but then at one point said no. But the larger issue is really the issuing of individual rulings, because as you know, Mark, the biggest challenge in this politically is that these judges that are appointed, right? Many of them don't necessarily need Senate confirmation, but they are appointed, and it could be from Republican or Democrat. And so the question, you know, in Washington has really been growing and growing. Do you want Republican or Democratic judges making a universal ruling, one that applies, you know, to even in this case, national security policies, et cetera? And how is that going to take place? That is a big problem, and that problem has not yet been solved.
Well, I mean, you're right to point to. I mean, Republican judges along these lines, they blocked the distribution of mifepristone. I mean, we remember that entire thing. So it does. it does create problems on both sides. But I'm going to table what I had for you for next week, because it was really related to polling, and we'll have even more polling by the time I see you next week.
Right.
Thank you for letting me pack a bunch of stuff in here, and I've left a lot of stuff on the back burner for us to get to. Thank you, Gary. Always appreciate you being here.
And likewise, buddy, and have a great show.
Gary Dietrich, everybody. Yeah. And Gary Dietrich is brought to us by the people at Remax Gold, specifically Bill Campbell. All our Northern California viewers and listeners, if you need a highly respected real estate professional, you're relocating into or from Northern California, check out Bill Campbell Remax Gold. You can call or text him, 530-448-7474. 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell Remax Gold. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I finally have a reason to look forward to Mondays. I am so excited to talk always with a brilliant best-selling author. And I've always recommended her books to you, and I know you guys send me emails and you indicate in the comments, hey, I've just got all of her books. I just bought her book. Oh my God, I just put down her book. It's incredible. I get so much of that after her appearances here. And I have really good news for those who are fans of Sarah Kendzior or who have yet to discover Sarah Kendzior and want to. Sarah Kendzior has a special. It's today only. 2 of Sarah's books are on sale in ebook form for $2.99. Hiding in Plain Sight and They Knew, both for $2.99. The sale lasts only today. And we're going to have a link to buy the books. And I will tell you that, as I've mentioned before, you can almost crack the book anywhere, any of her books, and get right into it. Like, wow. She talks about Epstein and transnational organized crime and Trump and the discovery of Trump and the varnishing of Trump and the varnishing of all of these transnational criminals. So can't speak more positively about Sarah's work, and today, great sale. So again, in ebook form, $2.99 for Hiding in Plain Sight and They Knew. The sale lasts only today, and we'll have links to it under this video. Now, without any further delay, Sarah Kendzior. Hi.
Hi, thank you for that.
Yeah. I didn't want to bring you on and have you to sit there while I had to do the commercial for your books. I just felt it'd be awkward, you know.
Yeah, that would be. So thank you.
That was my thinking on that. But wow, I'll start with the big news, and then I thought of you in relation to a couple of stories and presidential pardons, and I wanted to get your thoughts on those. But as the politics of tragedy is played out in America right now, it really strikes me as everything's just at lower and lower ebb. Like the discourse can't get worse, and yet it does. So National Guard troops that, in my judgment, shouldn't be in Washington, D.C. to begin with, are there. 2 are the victims of the shooting from an Afghani who, as it turns out, was vetted quite extensively as a result of a CIA participation. And now, in the wake of this tragedy, the blame goes to the Biden administration for this, even though the actual asylum was granted under the Trump administration. So the manifest nature of the lie is right there, and yet it's the clear MAGA talking point. Some thoughts?
I mean, I think this is part of Trump's general move to, one, just depopulate the United States in general, but in particular target Muslims, regardless of their background. In his first term, he had a list of countries, seemingly chosen at random. They didn't correspond to national security concerns. What they had in common is that they were all Muslim majority countries. And I think this is another case of this. We see, in this case, we have a armed terrorist, but then they use this individual to cast blame on anyone from Afghanistan and any family, including people who have fought on behalf of this country, including people who have suffered from our invasion of their country. I'm seeing cases of students, from Iran. There's a Johns Hopkins student who got stuck at the Canadian border and now is just basically stateless because he was going to visit his brother. There's these really benign actions being taken by either American citizens or green card holders or people kind of in the midst of the immigration process, and they suddenly are being kicked out of the country with no recourse, with legal recourse they can't afford, and with no institutional support. That's what's happening to a lot of these college kids and people who were here, to do work and research that usually is thought of as positive because it benefits our country. So I see this as just part of a broader sadistic plan.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the pause is hit on all Afghani refugee processes. That includes those that are on the verge of getting asylum, who have been vetted, been through the process. So, as you say, it becomes the excuse. And, it's funny, you remind me of a story that I saw over the long Thanksgiving weekend, and it was so tragic. And the brutality and the tragedy is clearly a deliberate part of policy. The college student that was going to surprise her mother and come home for Thanksgiving, she was deported to, I want to say Honduras, or I think some country in Latin America, where she had no connection to this country, hadn't been there since she was 7 years old. She had come to this country to realize the American dream, and indeed was attending college and was a scholastic star, and coming home to sort of take the victory lap with mom to surprise her for Thanksgiving. Now she's in Honduras with her grandmother. And again, I almost wept as I read this. And this is, as you suggested, the deliberate brutality of this administration.
Yeah, and that's just one of the cases that are publicized. There are a lot of people who are afraid to make a big deal out of the case that they're facing. I know a lot of people from academia. I used to work in academia, who over the last year have lost their fellowships, have lost their residency, are afraid to work here, and also afraid to bring their case to the press, in part because the press is largely compromised. Outlets that would have once run sympathetic coverage are now cowering to Trump, but also they're afraid of, being seen as a troublemaker, and they just simply want to live their lives. And, it's also, I think, a tactic, not just by Trump, but by this broader network surrounding him that has long targeted higher education. And we have this, deranged system in the US where higher education is unaffordable for most people. And the, money that's propping up the universities often comes from foreign students who are paying the full tuition, as opposed to American students who often, can't because it's too expensive, and they're getting fellowships, scholarships, etc. When you take away that foreign money, a lot of these institutions are going to fold. And then on top of that, you have Trump just doing extortion, doing blackmail tactics on a lot of research institutions. And so I think the goal is to stop research.
He just took down Northwestern University. Sorry to interrupt, but I just read it this morning of $75 million. Yeah.
Yeah, and they cave so easily. The ones who don't cave, often are able to keep going. But I think, they want to get rid of immigrants, especially from particular regions, Latin America, and, basically any Muslim country. They want to get rid of education, and this is a way to do it without directly demanding to the university, you must shut down. It just makes it impossible for them to run. You're seeing changes within this university, the gutting of the humanities, the social sciences, the replacement with AI. A lot of these AI companies are connected to Trump and the government, and to people in both parties. A lot of donors, come from these networks. And I think it just points to a general sense of the disposability of human life and the disposability of American sovereignty. Those are the two defining themes of Trump's rule, and they were the first term and they are the second term.
Because you say disposability of a human life, it makes me think of something else I wanted to ask you about, which is, we may look at what's happening in Venezuela the aggressive and murderous policy that brings American firepower into these boats in international waters and blows them up. And then, as is suggested in this one instance, the one that we know about, there were survivors and there was return fire to take out the survivors, an obvious war crime. You could argue the international waters part of it is a war crime in itself. But this is a clear war crime, even in a situation that would involve combat. And here's the part that is additionally disturbing to me, and I kind of wanted to get your impression because you're really good with like America and the texture of America. I feel as though this is something that Americans ultimately, in a way, don't care about. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's because most Americans are struggling to find out what's going on. I'm struggling to find out what's going on, and I just run into an endless series of paywalls, propaganda, partial stories that leave out the general context of Venezuela. Like when I would read a Trump corruption story about the former Soviet Union or about the Middle East, I had enough background information about those countries to make sense of what I was reading and to basically be able to decode the propaganda. I can't do that with Venezuela. I don't know enough about who the key players are or about what is happening beyond murder. I do know that Elliot Abrams is involved. Elliot Abrams of Iran-Contra fame, of Iraq War fame. He was then brought back. He was in the first Trump administration, gunning for an Iran war. He was in the Biden administration right before the U.S. went on to aid Israel in its attempted genocide of Gaza. And so whenever Elliot Abrams is involved in something, particularly something in Latin America, bad things are afoot. When I noticed that, I went and I looked, to see for follow-up, like what exactly is he doing there? Why is he, this guy, this infamous individual, in the news yet again? Found very little. Same thing happened when he entered the Biden administration. And I keep wondering, why are the same people installed in administration after administration, time after time? That we saw this with Bill Barr. We see these sort of rotating actors who have really nefarious aims in terms of global policy regarding, two particular regions. Again, Central America and the Middle East. And those are also the regions where, Trump is targeting immigrants. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I mean, some of this is just oil. Some of this is, fossil fuel battles, which go back many, many, many decades. But I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did want to ask you about that because that does seem to be like the next few moves will be related to that regime change and access to oil. I mean, isn't that that's the one play, most certainly, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're certainly after that. They don't have any intention of, doing anything about climate change or the harm of fossil fuels. They're pushing all these AI initiatives that are draining our water. I mean, if anything, they're accelerating it. I noticed that Trump once again is targeting Ilhan Omar, targeting her because she's from Somalia, saying that, she's not a legitimate representative for that. Notably, Ilhan Omar's first kind of big scene in Congress was bringing up Elliot Abrams and wondering, why is he involved in Venezuela? Why is this, Iran-Contra notorious goon, making our foreign policy? And that was all the way back in, I think, 2019. And so I kind of wonder if his presence is something that's, underlying some of these decisions, because I really don't think it's Trump that is the geopolitical mastermind behind any of this. If there's money to be made, I'm sure he's very interested. But I think it's this, different groups for different measures. Some of it's tech, some of it's, fossil fuels and oil. Some of it is just general theocratic madness. There's all sorts of terrible things to choose from. So, this one unfortunately captures a lot of different things at once.
Yeah, the all-you-can-eat buffet of terribleness.
Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely right. It is worth noting that it's now being called out a bit, the way in which, I call them the Billionaire Boys Club, the world of Trump at the White House is just surrounded by all these billionaires, Bessent and Lutnick and all of these guys. And they all seem to either have direct interest in, or many around Trump and big donors have interests in a lot of the things that are being directly affected now by American foreign policy. This is happening in the Middle East, it's happening in Latin America. And so as these emerging problems in Latin America come to light, it does appear as though there is a business connect between the Trump administration and so many of these things that are also involved in strategic American policy. This on a level we really have never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an extension of a lot of crises we have seen, namely the ones I just mentioned that Elliot Abrams was involved in,
Sure, sure.
Iran-Contra, the Iraq War, the aftermath of the 2008 global collapse, where we saw these billionaires increase their wealth, even though Americans, were desperately seeking jobs and security. I think the kind of arms trading and drug trafficking and, mass murder and wildness of the late 1980s of the Reagan administration, that's what this kind of reminds me of the most in terms of things like bombing fishermen in Venezuela. But, the thing I've noticed is that there's just no effort at accountability, at transparency, at holding hearings, at impeachment. When people bring up impeachment for the multitude of crimes that this administration has committed, they laugh it off yet again, even though, they shouldn't have done that in the first administration. Pelosi had to be dragged to impeach Trump. Ultimately did. They should have taken it very seriously when it was at the end of his term and the entire country was pretty much united because of January 6th. They should have made it impossible for him to run again. They did not. They didn't even put up kind of a moral front. They're accepting a lot of this as normal. They're placating these actors, and I think some of it has to do with the amount of money that is being exchanged. I think some of it has to do with the threats that are levied at those who, contest Trump. But mostly I think, we have a group of individuals who just see, the world as something to be divided up for parts. And that's not new. That's true of any kind of imperial entity. I think what's new is that the American government sees our country as something that also can be stripped down and sold for parts. Our lands gone, sold to foreign countries, our waters drained, given to Silicon Valley and to AI. And so that's what's different about this crisis, is that they're not even making a pretense of caring about, their own constituency. And that's because we don't have the leverage of free and fair elections anymore.
Wow, that was a great run. And I have to tell you, like, a lot of what Sarah just said is in her books. I mean, both hints of it and then the actual blow by blow X's and O's of what you've just mentioned. It's a sad fact also that we're seeing, as you suggest, the openness of this. There's a brazenness to this administration, and the link between that and the lack of the election process holding anybody accountable. You feel like that's the. I also feel like there's a huge price that's being paid because media has been completely co-opted.
Yeah, media got co-opted very quickly. If you compare, the first term of Trump to the second, it's a world of difference. The investigative reporters that were bringing forth documents are, were basically, they lost their job around the time of, it was actually during the Biden administration, time of high inflation and a lot of job loss in media. A lot of outlets that would have covered all of this, BuzzFeed, Vice, the Daily Beast, say what you will about them, but they did cover corruption. They no longer exist, or they're greatly reduced. Other people are publishing behind a paywall, which I think is irresponsible if you're a multi-millionaire with, high level security information. I think that's kind of grotesque. There's no sort of sense of cohesion, and that began about 10 years ago because of streaming, because of the loss of like TV as something, everyone was kind of watching the same stuff. Even if they didn't like it, they were aware of it. People are siloed by that and by algorithms. And so they often don't know what it is that they're supposed to be caring about or reacting to. And it's not like there's some, voice from above telling you, care about this. But I think there are a lot of things that people naturally would care about if they knew that they were going on. You often see this when Trump voters are interviewed and they're told about, regular folks, not people in gangs, not criminals, not terrorists, but just, regular people, grandmothers, restaurant owners in their communities getting deported because of Trump, and they're genuinely surprised. And I see sometimes skepticism expressed, like, of course he was going to do it. How could they not know that? And I think, where would they have heard it? All the articles that were laying out what he was actually going to do, not all of them, but most of them, were paywalled, and they were constantly getting fed a stream of propaganda and lies, either directly from Trump himself or from his acolytes, who use these algorithms, who use these social media companies to target with such precision people's anxieties, people's fears, and then they exploit them by giving them this false information. And then it's innocent people, it's very vulnerable people who pay the greatest price for that.
This makes me now want to play for Sarah the Thanksgiving thing, Tony. Can you rally that? This is a Thanksgiving Zoom that, how families on Thanksgiving will Zoom in if they can't all be there in person. This is really out there, but it speaks to the cultism maybe and anger. If Tony can rally it, I'll play it for you. But essentially, you had a manifestation of the cultism in that whatever Trump wants to do is fine. So these extrajudicial killings, fine. Go ahead, Tony, play it. It's to see it played out. It almost plays like a sketch. But go ahead.
In any other country, if he would go on the TV and spout that shit off, he would be executed.
This is about the.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Legislators.
He's a
and
traitor.
The video saying.
Should members of military follow unlawful orders?
Yes.
What?
They should follow any order that the president gives.
That's
and the
correct.
government gives. That's wrong.
Even if it breaks laws?
It will endanger other people if you don't follow orders.
What if President Trump orders a squad of army guys to walk down the street killing anyone they see? They should do it?
Yes.
Mom?
Yes. What?
I don't even understand. Like, how can you come to that conclusion?
It sounds to me like you lefties are now beginning to fear the fact that the military is going to get involved and your asses are grass.
No, it's because you're in a cult.
What if Donald Trump says, I want you to carpet bomb Oklahoma City, kill everyone? You think the Air Force should carry that out?
Yes.
There might be a reason. We don't know.
This is insane.
You cannot be this stupid. Jesus.
All right, so you get the idea. I'm not going to play anymore, but that speaks to the cultism, Sarah, just a bit. I mean, I feel as though there's a cultism that's now an adjunct to a lot of other stuff that you've described through the years.
There's been cultism for a while. I mean, I would want to know about that particular family because, quite honestly, it did seem to me like a sketch. I mean, it might be a sketch that reflects actual conversations that are happening, but the way that it was staged, the yes of the father was like the exact same clip, I think.
Oh, you think? Okay, we'll have to go back.
I don't know. I don't know who they are. I'm sure there are. Yeah. I mean, I've met people, who have this view, especially this view of the presidency of something akin to a benign dictatorship, where if the president says it should happen, then the president can do it, and they don't always, feel that way when the president is not of their political party or expressing a view that they disagree with. But, with Trump, I mean, I think some of it is a sort of oppositional defiance for the sake of it. I think some of it comes from fear, because what they saw in the way that Trump flexed his power, especially that he faced no consequences for January 6th, is you could choose two sides in their cases. They could be on the side of the evil, powerful people who get to do whatever the hell they want. And therefore, they think that kind of elite impunity is transferable, that they too will have it and will own it if they take this side. Or they will be on the side of the victims who have no legal recourse, who have no journalistic sympathy, who don't have the people behind them, who don't know what to do when these things happen. So I think a lot of people pick more of an in-between place where they just get very quiet. They stop talking about political things altogether. This exactly reminds me of what I would see when I studied authoritarian states as an academic. You suddenly just see people posting pictures of their pets and recipes and nothing else, just content that won't offend anybody. But when they do, participate, it's all like, let's hail the dictator, because that is the safer position. But it also, to them, I think, is the stronger position. The thing is it doesn't work out that way. It will always backfire. And everyone who has worked with Donald Trump would be able to tell you that in the end, he will always screw you over, more than being an autocracy, this is a mafia state. This is a transactional criminal empire, and they don't have anything that he wants. He doesn't really want their votes. He doesn't care. He's not out to win them over, with his charm. He's not at home weeping if somebody doesn't like him. None of these guys care because they have billions of dollars and total, criminal impunity with no justice system holding them back. So what the average American wants, it's of no interest to them. And I do wish that these individuals who have fallen into a cult-like way of viewing Trump, and I do think it's a small part, like there's the Trump voters and then there's like the hardcore base, and the hardcore base is kind of beyond help to a certain extent. They're really in it for the long run. They're gonna ride with him, ride or die. And unfortunately with Trump and RFK Jr., that's a very literal proposition. So.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I should note, just on the heels of that polling shows that those who are not in the ride or die group, they are in the independent group, et cetera. I mean, he's really falling off a ledge that way. Now, again, will that matter with the elections coming up? With the quote elections coming up, we'll see. You mentioned Eastern Europe, and you just know so much in that world. And I just want to quickly visit Russia and Ukraine, because that 28-point deal was handed down, and it was endorsed by Trump quickly between, golf rounds. And then it's revealed quickly also that it was translated from Russian. It clearly feels as though it was translated from Russian. It was essentially a surrender, and then it's revealed that the strategy here, and this is something that I feel like you were aware of already for a long time, is to recharacterize, this is a strategy on the part of the Russians, recharacterize the Russians not as a military threat, but actually as an economic and business opportunity for so many wealthy Americans, billionaires like Witkoff, who was handling the negotiations, and those around Witkoff, Kushner, et cetera. And so they have a bunch of frozen assets that they'd like to unfreeze, and they'd like to convince these business people, again, those that I've mentioned and more, that now we can work together with all of these additional assets and with Russian business opportunities. And so to recharacterize Russia in this way is very appealing to this crew that's in Washington right now.
Well, of course it is. I mean, these are the people who've been working with Trump since the 1980s. Trump Tower was essentially a dorm for the Russian mafia. And since the collapse of the Soviet Union, it's these mafiosos and these oligarchs who have held the shots. And throughout, the Russia-Ukraine war, I've basically thought that there is a quieter war that's been going on underneath that has much more to do with money, less with territory and the sort of imperial, Putin wants to reconquer the Soviet Union sense, although that is also there too. And of course, Ukraine is resisting against that. But I think there have been, quite a lot of deal making that is behind the scenes. And that is one of the reasons that this war has dragged on so long, is because it's basically two wars. There's a conventional land war above, and then there's the criminal underworld below. And that underworld, thrives in both of these countries. And the more, they fall apart due to warfare, the easier it is for criminality to thrive. I think it's interesting, that somebody, multiple people closely wedded to Israel are so invested in this war. If you go back to 2016, you'll see similar deals being made with Kushner, with Vitaly Churkin, who was the Russia's ambassador to the UN, later revealed as a Jeffrey Epstein associate, with Michael Flynn. This has always been the way that Trump and his gang operated. Of course, Paul Manafort, a Kremlin asset, running his campaign. I could go on and on naming all these people, and they're actually in the books. But a lot of people like to blow off Russia. They'll call it Russiagate or something. They don't understand that this is just another manifestation of oligarchy, of plutocracy, of hypercapitalism, of elite criminal impunity. These are the same as the awful billionaires that are in the United States or the United Kingdom or other places in the West. This is simply the Russian version of them, and they work together with bad actors in the West, and they certainly work together with bad actors in Israel, because Israel is often where they will give them a place to go, asylum, if they end up getting sanctioned by the West. You could see people like Roman Abramovich, going straight to Israel as soon as he got sanctioned for his dirty deeds. They also are funding Congress. They give money to U.S. proxies, and then those proxies donate into campaigns. And then that helps determine what kind of military equipment a place like Ukraine gets. And so I think it's really important to look at all that. No one wants to, because they're giving to both sides of the aisle. Like, they know how to play this game. You don't just control one party, you control both in different ways. And with Trump, it's really easy to control Trump if you are from Russia and involved in Russian the economy, a businessman, the Russian mafia, because Russia, because Trump has been hooked up with the Russian mafia for 4 decades. So they know this guy really well. They don't even really have to blackmail him. He's a volunteer. And he has, interest in this, a soft spot, if you will. But I think it's really his heirs, the people surrounding him, individuals like Kushner. You should watch out for what they want to do to Ukraine and what they want to do to Gaza, because I think that will herald what they want to do to the world at large.
So well said. And I just think that now the brazen nature of it, to get back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation, has led so many business people and these people who are associated with Trump, even in a tangential way from a business standpoint, they see the opportunity here and they can operate in a brazen way also. And it's a fascinating thing to see. You lay it bare in your books, the way that he was in bed with the Russians from the very start. And just on the books, I want to mention that Sarah has a sale on today. It's one day. You can get 2 books, Hiding in Plain Sight and They Knew. You'll get the ebooks. And I believe Kim has the, we have a link to it under this video. But the key is that in both these books, and these aren't all of Sarah's books, they're just 2 of Sarah's books. In both these books, you get Epstein, you get Trump, you get all of these things that came to pass. I mean, it's kind of eerie almost, the way that Sarah Kendzior walks us through that which we're living. Only you did it years before we were living it.
Yeah, well, we were living it. It's just people wouldn't acknowledge that we were living it, which, caused me an enormous amount of problems because I could see this future coming and desperately wanted it to be stopped. It's very frustrating for anybody who covered Epstein. It's obviously most frustrating for the women who came forward and testified to this, but also, journalists like Julie K. Brown, they're out there saying the stuff released by Congress, a lot of it is not new. These were public domain documents who our press refused to cover, our Congress refused to examine, and they have not held these predators accountable. And it's been enormously frustrating to see sometimes literal lines from my work just stolen by other journalists, put behind paywalls, quoted. And these are well-known lines, like something like, this is a transnational crime syndicate masqueraded as a government. Like, people hold that up at protests. Like, you should probably try to plagiarize something that didn't sell this many copies. But it's more disheartening, not just like for me, like I'm not the big victim here. The victim is this country. It's everyone who's been hurt by this administration. It's everybody who, thought that Biden and others would stop it, would take action while they could to prevent them from coming back, because of course they were going to come back worse than when they started, and they were going to get done all the things that they weren't able to finish doing in the first term, only with so many advantages, the courts on their side, advances in technology like AI that gives them plausible deniability over different things, alliances with the media and with big tech that weren't really, so secure before. So it's disastrous. It breaks my heart. It tends to take people about 4 years to kind of, for my ideas to be viewed as lunacy and then be now seen as mainstream opinion. Hiding came out in 2020. They Knew came out in 2022. So my last book, The Last American Road Trip, came out in 2025. And that's the nice, sweet one, where I drive around the country with my family and I show my kids America. And I'm worried about what's going to come. But I keep wondering what the world will be like in 2029 when that book is maybe conventional wisdom. And I think, two things will be there. Either we will have actually made some progress towards accountability, and we will have, restored an appreciation for the good things in America that we have to offer our national parks and so forth. Or this will be like reading a travelogue of the end of the Soviet Union written in like 1989,
Wow.
by a family
Wow.
driving through the 15 republics. Like, I don't know. I'm hoping, obviously, it's the first scenario.
Yeah, as I've told you before, I just think that that book is so poignant in many places. Maybe because of the backdrops, you come to all of these different stops, but then you kind of look back through history and review the moments, and your family's there. So I guess it just landed with me a little differently than some of the other stuff. Anyway, the Last American Road Trip is the book we're talking about. But before that was They Knew, Hiding in Plain Sight, The View from Flyover Country, and once again today is this special deal. It's only for today, a $2.99 price. You get both Hiding in Plain Sight and you get They Knew. And we'll have a link to it, as we do always, a link to all of Sarah's books and her Substack as well. But that special link to get both those books today for just $2.99, that'll be a link under this video. Huge fans. We continue. And I really so appreciate you spending Mondays with us, Sarah. I really look forward to it every week. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Same.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
A lot of people saying they've already picked up the books. Look at this. Thank you, Mark. Just bought both. Well, it's a good thing. Yeah, Sarah's pretty great. Trump is running the economy like a casino, says Olhanson. Citizens pay and later get some of their own money back, feeling like winners. Yeah. Sarah, you're the best. I agree. Big Sarah fan. Such a brilliant mind, exactly. A reason to be here on Monday. Yeah, it's true. Good stuff. Thanks again to Sarah Kendzior. We continue. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I had a bunch of stuff still to get to, and I'm going to get to it. You can't stop me. But I do want to mention that tonight, I'm looking forward to it, Kim. I'm freshly showered. Tony, are you going to shower for this tonight? It's a big deal. All right. Can we, will you take a meeting on having a shower? Maybe we'll.
Thanks, Tony. I'm also freshly showered.
Well,
Yeah.
Kim,
how are you?
I always figure that the Kim comes to it,
It's
rested
gonna
and
be
ready.
it's my first holiday party of the season.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it is
gonna
a
be
holiday
good.
party. It's our
Yeah.
holiday hoedown. If you want to shoehorn your way in, you should have already gotten the link. If you haven't gotten the link, do contact us. But again, you only get the link if you have hit our PayPal with a $50 donation. It's a fundraiser for the show. 2 hours of hoeing down begin at 6 p.m. Go to 8 p.m. That's Pacific time. And we'll have East Coasters, we'll have Midwesterners, we'll have Floridians, Californians. Pat Thurston is going to be joining. Spencer Christian, John Rothman. $50 donation via PayPal. Note HH or Holiday Hoedown with your donation. Our PayPal page is reached easily under all of our videos on YouTube. There's a link. Then after you've done that, send an email to confirm your spot. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Say, I did it. And then we will send you the link. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. So, Richard Delamater saying, I'll try to sober up by 6. We like him sober.
We do. Yeah.
Richard is our party boy, but we like him sober. Let me quickly address a couple of comments, and then I've got a law and disorder to do. I do want to get to all of this. I know Kim's news, maybe. Bitcoin losing 15 to 20% since January. I'm sure it's all part of the plan. The very stable genius plan, says Jim Slayton, $5 super chat. Yeah, I know it's interesting because, as you know, the world of Trump and the Trump family is informed by that World Liberty that they own, that platform. So they make money on all the crypto transactions, but they do hold a bunch of crypto. And then, we as the United States of America are going to hold crypto. It's the craziest thing ever. I mean, it really is crazy. But it's not crazy when there's manipulation of an asset going on. And that's exactly what's happening in America. What else I saw the anybody north of the Golden Gate Bridge is invited to my house to join for free.
Oh.
Email Mark for my number, says Richard Delamater. Yeah, you proceed at your own risk, I would say, with Richard Delamater. Also from Romania Animal Rescue, they are going to be there tonight. Romania Animal Rescue is going to be there at the meetup. In memory of our darling dog, Boo Boo. Oh, that makes me so sad, man. Gosh,
What
you
a
know, it's
generous
just so
contribution,
sad.
too.
Yeah, $50 super chat. That really is so so lovely, and I'm so sorry for your loss. It's a what can I say? We've had such a year of loss. I'm so heartbroken for you, and I really thank you for the contribution, being a supporter of the show, and for letting us know. So thank you,
Maybe
Romania
you
Animal
can-
Rescue Inc. Check
Maybe you
them
can
out.
bring a picture tonight so we can see Boo Boo.
Oh, that'd be really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
very good idea. CC Ryder with a $10 super chat saying BBC says, quote, caseworker helping family access services in the U.S. sent an email in January 2024 expressing concern that Mr. Lachenwall had not been employed for a year, faced eviction, manic episodes of depression. This is really interesting because when we talk about vetting, and again, that's in January, according to this BBC report from CC Ryder. Thank you for that. And thank you for the super chat. That's months before asylum was actually granted, right? Asylum was granted in April by the Trump administration. So you can blame Biden all you want. If you had legit reports and warnings about this guy and about the change in his psyche, that's on you. By the way, that may literally be actionable. That may be a court case. I mean, a horrible, tragic, drenched in blood court case, but nonetheless a court case. Why deny a work permit when allowing person asylum? Exactly. It makes no sense. Anyway, all right. I'm going to. I've got to get to Karen Dawn too, Kim, and I'm going to blame. Who's to blame for this delay?
I blame you.
All right, I'll blame myself.
Tony's here, so I mean,
Yeah, Tony is here to blame, but he's tired.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am here to welcome this first Monday of every month a segment that we do about animals. We call it A Word About Animals.
Now, a word about animals on the Mark Thompson Show.
And our regular visitor for A Word About Animals is Karen Dawn of Dawn Watch. Dawn Watch, the postings on Facebook. You can Google where all the different places that Karen Dawn and Dawn Watch post show up. I remember quite fondly the Thanksgiving celebration you used to do. It was covered by local media. It was even national media there at times. I think you had turkeys there that were live, of course, because of, everything at your place is vegan and, cruelty free. And you had these turkeys walking around the yard and all these TV crews, et cetera. But you were making a point, and it was really one of those points that, can be made on Thanksgiving Day in a way that probably can't be made any other day.
Turkeys are cool animals, and that was the point, that you can have an awful lot of fun on Turkey Day celebrating them in a different way. And so, it was just to remind people that they're cool, so that when they had kids coming home from college who didn't want to, be eating them, that they'd have a little more patience with them. And the reporters were always so surprised when they met them and got to pet them and found out that they were really, really cool. So.
I remember one thing, this has nothing to do with animals particularly, but it was almost like a parlor trick. I'll tell everybody what it was. So Karen has all these people at her home, and I don't know, 35 people, something like that. And she has them all there, and she, stands before them. By the way, this is something I feel sort of uncomfortable when I stand up in front of like 35 people if it's my party. Somebody else's party, it's okay. But anyway, she stands up in front of all these people, and then she goes around person by person and describes who they are and like how she knows them. And it's one of the most amazing things. And maybe it's just because of my anxiety, like that I wouldn't be able to hit every mark and 35 people. But you did it with such a plum, and you did it every year. You go around the room. Yeah, I know Jessica from this. I know Bob from that. I know Daphne from this. And it's like, wow. And
yeah, the point of that was just so that people would learn who else was there, so that they could work out who they might want to talk to.
Yeah, I know. It was a great social mixing exercise.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So tell me what you have for us today. This is a post-Thanksgiving visit with you.
Yeah, I just want to mention this last Thanksgiving, I was up in Canberra and got to feed the wild live turkeys up there, which was pretty fun. And people my Instagram page actually has a photo of that. People might want to have a look at. That's the Karen Dawn. And otherwise, I'm pretty much focused on Substack at the moment. Just want to mention that dawnwatch.substack.com is where everything that I'm there. Thank you, Tony. Tony just shared the photo from magical Cambria, where and this was so fascinating because I went to feed the wild turkeys. You know, in Cambria, when you're driving down the street, you often have to stop because the turkeys are crossing the road and they are in no rush. They'll just, you kind of have to wait. And I thought, I want to feed some of them for Thanksgiving. So I went and I saw 3 lovely turkey girls I wanted to feed, and they ran away. They would have nothing to do with me. And then I saw some on the other side of the road who I started to feed. And then the 3 turkey girls who had run away came across the road. So I was feeding all of them. And then I realized there was a beautiful big male about 150 feet up the hill just watching. And I realized that the turkey girls were kind of scared of me until they were close enough to the male to feel protected. It was the most awesome.
Oh, that's interesting. That
watch
really is.
The turkey dynamics. If anybody wants to know anything about those turkey dynamics, by the way, PBS has a documentary special they air sometimes on Thanksgiving. You can always find it online, called My Life as a Turkey. And it's one of my favorite films of all time. It's an hour long. It is so worthwhile. So that's one other point I'll make about turkeys at the moment is watch My Life as a Turkey. And also check out, Mutt's had a beautiful Thanksgiving turkey the day after. Did a beautiful double entendre on Thanksgiving, is when they showed a turkey family, a wild turkey family, giving thanks for having survived another Thanksgiving with family. We thank you, Tony, for sharing that. And I love the double entendre there, because I know a lot of people are relieved to have survived another Thanksgiving with family. So.
I was making the point. I think I was making it on the radio, but maybe I was making it here too. I don't think I did, but I always am struck by that moment where the president is pardoning the turkeys and sending them on to, it's nice that the turkeys are pardoned or whatever you want to call it that. I mean, and sent off to a refuge to live out their natural lives. I mean, hoping that actually happens. But I always felt as though it's kind of as if Lincoln had freed 2 slaves every year. You know what I mean? It was just, it's so weird to me. Again, please forgive me, everyone. I come from a perspective of wanting to see none of them harmed. And it is always funny. So there are a bunch of Thanksgiving traditions, I guess, that I'm saying kind of land in this awkward way. And this is one of them. And Trump did it the same way Obama did it, and the same way Bush did it, and et cetera,
On a happier note, I want to share really good news with you all today. If we can move along to the plastic bag ban. Can we move on to that now, or did you have more that you wanted to talk about with
Well, I like sadness and darkness, but if you want to move on to something nice, go ahead. Yeah, I was letting you move. Go, move. You got it, baby. Take me to the light. I live in depression and darkness. Tell me when we get there, Tony. Tell me when we get to the good stuff. All right, go ahead.
This is good. This is really good news. It was announced in the San Francisco Chronicle on the weekend. A lot of your listeners may remember that supposedly California banned plastic shopping bags. It's like 10 years ago, 2014. Disposable plastic shopping bags were banned in California. And California has a wonderful, I think, law that says that if the legislature does something and somebody objects to it, they have the right to bring it to the people by a ballot measure to make sure that the people are on board. So, of course, the plastic industry didn't like this plastic bag ban much, which is done pretty much for the sake of marine mammals, marine birds, etc. And they brought it to the people, and the people said, no, we like this ban. For once the legislature did something we agree with. So the disposable plastic bag ban went into effect. So what did the plastics industry do? They said, oh, well, we're going to put out more bags that are reusable rather than disposable. They're much thicker and they can be reused 125 times. Now, I'd love to have a hands up from your listeners as to how many people reused those reusable plastic bags 125 times. The average use was once. So that's how the plastic industry got around this very popular plastic disposable bag ban. The good news is the legislature went back and they got a ban on all plastic bags being given out by grocery stores, whether they're disposable or reusable. And I think the plastics industry is not going to, we hope they're not going to go back and try again to, put a spanner in the works by saying, oh, people don't really want this, because people have made it very clear that they do. So that it's been signed into law, the new law banning all plastic bags being given away at grocery stores. And that goes into effect at the beginning of the year. This is incredibly good news for all sea life. I sent Tony a video. I don't know whether or not he got that, but it's the most heartbreaking video of a seagull actually eating a plastic bag, presumably because something good was left inside it that tasted good. And there they go. If you watch this whole video, sadly the seagull does actually swallow the bag, and there's no doubt that seagull is going to die because it's going to completely jam up the works inside. You've got turtles mistaking plastic bags for jellyfish constantly, and that kills them. And you've got whales, they actually looked inside the stomach of a dead whale and found plastic bags inside a mink whale. These bags are so bad for wildlife, and the ban is such incredibly good news for animals, and I wanted to share that.
No, that's just great. I'm glad you leave us with some good news. I do think it's true that when you see the plastic bags, no matter how they're built, no matter how they're pitched, they get used once and thrown away. That's just because of the societal muscle memory on plastic. It's disposable. So,
and some people, I think, might like to think that they're recycling their plastic. And there's two truths here folks do need to know about. One is that, a lot of stuff that goes into recycling bins never comes out on the right side of the other for all sorts of various reasons we could go through in another show, but they find all sorts of reasons not to recycle various things. And the other thing is there's actually no such thing as recycling plastic. It's a little bit of a misnomer. Plastic gets downcycled, not recycled. So unlike glass, where if you throw away if a glass bottle gets recycled, you can make another glass bottle out of that glass. Plastic isn't just completely reusable. So every time, if you think of plastic containers, they have those numbers on them. And every time that you throw something with one of those numbers into a bin, it can get made into a different form of plastic, which is less recyclable. And after 2 or 3 goes, you get to the point where it
goes to the landfill.
So it's better than nothing to put your plastic in the recycling bin, but it's far better for animals and the environment to just avoid using plastic. And now
Karen says, I try to use reusable mesh vegetable bags, but some plastic bags are useful to reuse multiple times, so I sometimes get them on purpose.
Yes. Yes, as does everybody, and you'll be able to buy them, Karen. So, you can absolutely have them, and it's not like they're being banned from all use, but the grocery stores will not be able to just give them or even sell them for 10 cents, which is a negligible amount to most people. You might be able to buy bags for $1 or something. You can certainly still go to the supermarket and buy a bunch of plastic garbage bags that you can reuse. But we're just trying to, make it so that they're just not everywhere ubiquitously in our system all the time. And supermarkets will be allowed to sell paper bags. And paper bags are better for the environment in some ways than plastic bags. But I'm going to share, I read a book a few years ago, which is, I'm sure some of your listeners will have read, called The Overstory by Richard Powers. And it won the Pulitzer Prize. It's such a beautifully written novel. And it's about trees. And I have to say that once you've read that book, paper bags become a little bit less appealing. And you're far more likely to think, I think I'll bring my canvas bags to the store with me for the sake of the earth, for the sake of the animals who live on this earth, and for the sake of the trees that house all the animals. So it's
Yeah, there's a price to be paid for everything that we do and everything we consume. Substack is Karen's most favored place of online residence.
Dawnwatch.substack.com.
Say it again, please.
Dawnwatch.substack.com, or also Substack at the Karen Dawn works too. Both of them take you to
we'll have a link to it under this video. Karen, there it is, dawnwatch.substack.com. So appreciate you. Have a great holiday. I guess we won't talk to you until the new year. So what we will make that plan, though. We will talk to you in the new year. May the year bring you all the blessings of the this wonderful planet and all these great creatures that exist on it, including us. Really appreciate your contributions all year. Thank you, Karen Dawn.
And yours too, Mark.
All the best. Karen Dawn, everybody. That's a word about animals.
Join the flock again next time for a word about animals on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Gosh, it's getting toward the end of the show. But I'm telling you, and I'm committed to it, and I get it. When we have these guests, and they're really great, they do this to me all the time.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't get a chance to do my goddamn show the way I want to do it.
I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
I got stuff I want to do.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
Yeah. In case you knew what was going on. Well, I have stuff I want to do, Kim. And I, here at the end of the year, want to get this stuff in. And I'll give you an example, and I will tell my darling Tony, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Law and Disorder. You ready with that, Tony?
Already.
All right. Everybody stand by. Strap in. I'm going to stick this landing if I have to fly this plane myself. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Loss for Donald Trump in the courts. Donald Trump doesn't do so well because there are rules in the courts. And his former personal lawyer, the top federal prosecutor wannabe, that's Alina Habba, she is rebuffed by the court. The top federal prosecutor in New Jersey spot cannot be occupied by Alina Habba. She is disqualified from that post.
What?
Yes. U.S. Third Circuit Judge D. Michael Fisher wrote for a unanimous 3-judge panel saying Habba's continued service in a job she first took in March violates the Federal Vacancies Reform Act and undercuts constitutional protections meant to ensure that the three branches of government remain separate but equal. The judge barred Habba from the job.
Is this because they tried to shove her in without congressional approval?
Fisher noted that the Senate did not act to confirm Haba within the 120 days. There you go, Kim gets points.
Mm-hmm.
And that preserves the United States Attorney's Independence Act requirement. So when the New Jersey federal judges appointed Desiree Lee Grace in July instead of Haba, the Trump administration officials fired Desiree Lee Grace. And they resorted to a string of maneuvers to keep Haba in the job. Those maneuvers served to sidestep the Federal Vacancies Reform Act and statutory requirements reflecting Congress's intent for someone with, quote, a breadth of experience to properly lead that office. Here's a little something from the judge. Quote, it is apparent that the current administration has been frustrated by some of the legal and political barriers to getting its appointees in place. Its efforts to elevate its preferred candidate for U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey, Alina Haba, to the role of acting U.S. Attorney demonstrate the difficulty it has faced, yet the citizens of New Jersey and the loyal employees in the U.S. Attorney's Office deserve from clarity and stability. And so...
Good day, sir!
Yes. So, again, this case has been argued, and now Haba is no longer a player for the New Jersey top prosecutor spot. Meanwhile, to me, this is a sign of epic corruption. The Trump administration and Donald Trump himself, because he's the only one in the administration who could do this, can't blame anyone else. He is commuting the sentence of a private equity CEO convicted of fraud.
What?
David Gentile, a private equity executive who was convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison for a fraud scheme, is now getting a commutation from Donald Trump. He was the former CEO, was Gentile, and the owner of GPB Capital Holdings. Convicted in August 2024 on charges of security and wire fraud, sentenced in May. Gentile is the latest white-collar defendant that Trump has given a reprieve to as the president has leaned into clemency powers and pardon powers in his second term. He pardoned Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, who pleaded guilty to a money laundering scheme. Russ Ulbricht, you'll remember, been serving a life sentence for creating the Silk Road marketplace. That's where everything from kiddie porn to narcotics were traded and paid for. Trevor Milton, the founder of an electric vehicle startup, sentenced to 4 years in prison for exaggerating the potential of his technology. That was a wildly over-the-top rip-off scheme. Gentile is the latest. They were charged in what the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission described as a Ponzi-like scheme, raised over $1.7 billion. This is a big-time fraud. Prosecutors worked hard. They say they used investors' own funds to pay out monthly distributions to investors instead of putting them toward customers' investments. They did the Eastern District of New York, writing about this case back when they released the news that they were prosecuting Gentile. That his role and his partner's role in a multi-year scheme to defraud more than 10,000 investors involved misrepresenting the performance of 3 GPB Capital private equity funds and the source of those funds used to make monthly distribution payments to investors. It was a straight-up Ponzi scheme. And now, Gentile gets commutation from the Trump administration. And that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey,
Let's be careful out there. The Mark Thompson Show.
I know you think I'm done, but I'm not done.
No?
No, I'm not. I
What else
said
could
I was
there be?
landing this plane the way I wanted to land it, and I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a choice, though, Kim.
Okay.
Do you want something on elections?
Mm-hmm.
There is a special election today, by the way, in Tennessee, as you know. Or do you want something involving the White House in chunk of Trump?
Chunk of Trump.
Let's do it. Here's your...
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
The White House under Donald Trump is launching a website to excoriate the media for biased stories. Excoriate's a ding word. Trump is listing reports and reporting that it objects to. Going after U.S. journalism is one of the things that they love to do. What's that? No. There is
Mark Kelly.
Mark Kelly. He is featured prominently on this website.
How do I get the markthompsonshow.com there?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's going to be a great list. That's the list I want to go to.
Yeah, that's true.
Things they think are biased are the things that are not biased, right?
It's the bad list you want to. It's the bad list you want to be on because bad is actually good.
Because they don't like facts. So sure, put me on
the White House rolling out a new section of its official website. This is on official White House government website, my friend. This is in that universe, those websites. The White House rolling out a new section of its official website on Friday, publicly criticizing and cataloging media organizations and journalists that it claims have distorted coverage. As noted, and as you can see on YouTube, the top of that page reads misleading, biased, exposed. The feature names the Boston Globe, CBS News, and The Independent as media offenders of the week, accusing them of inaccurately portraying Trump's remarks about 6 Democratic lawmakers who released the video encouraging military members to not follow illegal orders. The controversy arose after Trump accused Democrats of seditious behavior punishable by death. He also reposted a statement including the words, "hang them." That doesn't sound like Trump.
What?
According to the site, quote, the Democrats and fake news media subversively implied that President Trump had issued illegal orders to service members. Every order that President Trump has issued has been lawful. It is dangerous for sitting members of Congress to incite insubordination in the United States military, and President Trump called for them to be held accountable. They also have in this feature, so you don't have to go there, I'll just tell you about it. Tony's knocking around there on YouTube. If you're watching, you can see it. The Offender Hall of Shame, which includes the Washington Post, CBS News, CNN, and MSNBC, now known as MS Now. Visitors can browse a searchable database of articles that include names of journalists who wrote them. Each story is categorized under labels like bias, malpractice, or left-wing lunacy. Oh.
That's like they're making it easy for me to find all the things I want.
There is a leaderboard. The leaderboard currently ranks the Washington Post as the top offender. Oh, there you go. MS, NBC, and CBS News taking second and third.
This is Casey Kasem in Hollywood.
That's right. The top offender, MSNBC. Coming in the second position, CBS News. And finally, the Washington Post on top of the board.
Halo Karen says it's a well-developed plan to have nothing but state media funneling rhetoric to the population.
Well, I mean, all kidding aside, and it is, it's so absurd so as to be something that would be laughable, like so many things with this administration. But I mean, that's an official website. There is your tax money going into its maintenance, that is to say, paying someone to curate it, the editorial board or whatever group of people feed it. That's a real government office that is doing that. Trump has crowned himself the affordability president. He did this in a rant about the midterms. He dubbed himself the affordability president in a Saturday morning social media rant during the Thanksgiving weekend. It featured some fuzzy math, kind of trying to dismiss economic concerns that are pretty much shared by a lot of Americans and fuel his claims that his efforts would help Republicans win the 2026 midterms. He said, quote, because I have invoked in capital letters favored nation status for the United States of America, drug prices are falling at levels never seen before, 500, 600, 700% and more. Yeah, sure. Trump has frequently talked about this. He talked about cutting prescription drug costs by 1,500%. I mean, it's ridiculous. Percentages don't work that way. If you cut 100%, then it's free. If you cut more than 100%, then you're paying me to buy it. And we just know that that's just not the case. But that is the line that is going to be believed by many. And that is the line he took on Saturday. A former GOP strategist reacting to Trump's Thanksgiving rant says it's indefensible. Joseph Moreno called President Donald Trump's hostile Thanksgiving rant absolutely indefensible. What happened to Happy Thanksgiving, he asked. Instead, Donald Trump had a tirade that he posted on that Truth Social platform after 2 National Guard members were shot in D.C. And it's too long for me to read to you, but it starts with a very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being, quote, politically correct and just plain stupid in capital letters when it comes to immigration. And then he goes on.
Happy Thanksgiving, sir.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to see Christmas. And a quick note that Donald Trump has dropped substantially in terms of approval ratings. Its lowest point in 10 months for Trump, and the lowest since he left office in 2021, according to a new survey. The Gallup poll, and generally Gallup, pretty reliable, but again, it's one poll, so you have to kind of look at others. And you'll have to look at the continued Gallup polling. It was released over Thanksgiving weekend on Friday, shows Trump's approval rating sitting at 36%, with 60% disapproving of how Donald Trump has handled the job since returning to the Oval Office in January. The number is 1 point lower than it was in July, though the pollsters showed that the president is stable between 40 and 41% in the months in between, so he hasn't dropped every month.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
So you know he's not going to drop below 35%, it sounds like then. Though Democrats overwhelmingly disapprove of Trump's handling of the presidency, I mean, that's no surprise. Approval among Republicans and independents, that's the thing you look at, and that showed a big decline. Republicans' approval dropping by 7 points from late October to 84%. 25% of independents approving of the president, down from 33% in October. So across the spectrum of issues, Trump's approval varies from the low 40s to the high 30s. He got the highest approval, 43%, for his handling of crime. 41% said the approval of his handling of foreign affairs, and 39% approve of his trade agenda. Again, this is all according to that same polling. And finally, First Lady Melania Trump unveiling the 2025 White House Christmas decorations. It's an exciting time. Home is where the heart is, she wrote. This Christmas, let's celebrate the love we hold within ourselves. I mean, way within ourselves, right, Trumps? I mean, it's deep, deep down. Like if you look, Melania, at Donald Trump, I'd say that love is multi-layers. You have to go maybe 3, 4, 5 layers down to find it. She said, after all, wherever we are, we can create a home filled with endless possibilities. First,
it's better than the red. Remember the red trees that look kind of evil? So this is better than that, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, they're making some changes at the White House. It's quite an exciting Christmas. I'm surprised there are any parts of the White House still left to decorate.
Yes.
They demolished the East Wing, as you know, and then paved the Rose Garden. But apparently the mantle in the Red Room is dedicated to the foster care community, which is really cool because my mentee is a result of a great foster care family.
Mhm.
And that's supposedly one of the First Lady's main causes, according to a press release anyway. And, well, it's nice to know that they got all the decorating done.
Sports Hatch says, I was expecting a gold tree.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. Not enough
Yeah.
gold. Yeah.
It looks
Next
kind of
year.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That, my friends, is a chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
Well, I have to, get with my glam team for tonight's big holiday hoedown throwdown. It's going to be fun. I hope it's a real throwdown, and I hope it's a real holiday hoedown. I hope there'll be some hoeing down, and I'm throwing down. Tony, you'll be here just a few minutes before so we can get this thing going.
Yeah.
6 o'clock tonight, Pacific time.
I have a date with John Rothman to help him sign in.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't know how to do it. So I have to call him before the show, before the event.
Oh, my God.
Are we going to have music, holiday music, you think?
We are if you're bringing it. I mean,
you just woo.
I'm counting on you. Yeah, you can bring holiday music. I used to have Richard Delamater has sent me all these things he wants. Use this music. It's a great house mix or whatever. It's like, all right. I'm excited, though. I really am excited. I'm looking very much forward to it. Courtney's going to be part of it, too, tonight, and it should be great, wherever you're joining, however you're joining. And by the way, again, I'll mention it to you. You should have received your link. So please, if you haven't gotten it, let me know, because, no turning back after this. And with that, we must wrap up. Click the like button, says Carol Ford. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, click it. Smash it already. I mean,
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Let me slide into the holidays with a few likes. Cost you nothing. Plaid Piper says, hey, the president is on a drug called Kisunla. That is an anti-dementia drug. That is true. I mean, it's true that it's an anti-dementia drug. I don't know if he's on it or not. It causes brain bleeds, which require frequent MRI. The way these dementia drugs, and we've talked about them on the show before, and even featured a few of them on the show, because they were getting what I thought was sort of questionable FDA approval, and I felt there was a little bit of regulatory creep going on. This is during the Biden administration, by the way. I think it was, Biden. They do create issues with the brain to kind of prevent plaque buildup there, because they think that's one of the reasons dementia manifests the way it does, and that can cause brain bleeding. So but her last point, or Plaid Piper, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, sorry, that it requires frequent MRIs, and so that these Trump MRIs are related to that. Very, very interesting, and appreciate that information. I did not know it.
The White House says that Trump MRI was a full body scan. So, and the results are apparently they're going to release them.
Wow. Yeah. I'm sure they'll release them.
We'll see how that goes.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I'll bet. Turtle Kitty says, regarding Sarah's bookmark, Hiding in Plain Sight, I read that book from cover to cover. I studied it. Half the book is highlighted. LOL. Excellent read in capital letters. Yeah, it's terrific, Hiding in Plain Sight. It's and I'm telling you, it is so applicable to everything that we're dealing with today, from the complete corruption of the administration to the Epstein files to the Russians and the rise of Trump. It's all there in Hiding in Plain Sight, and you can get both those books at quite a bargain today. For $2.99, you get Hiding in Plain Sight and They Knew, both of them. And Tony will have links to them both under this video and under the breakout video as well. So thank you for that, Turtle Kitty. I saw that Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, is actually in the chat right now. How exciting to get a celebrity in the chat. Can't believe I'll be missing the holiday fun tonight. Save me some eggnog for Friday. Yeah, Michael will be in on Friday, but he can't be there tonight because he's got some screening or some, stuff to get to. So, well, Pat Thurston should be there tonight. Spencer Christian, some of our pals. Nikki Maduro is going to come by. Kim McAllister, John Rothman. So that's a lot of the KGO crew. I'll be there with Courtney, and Tony's going to be there.
Working.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty damn exciting. That is our that's our holiday hoedown tonight. Tomorrow, I've got a brilliant professor and author talking about the scams associated with retirement and with taxes. And I think you're really going to be blown away by that conversation, along with the brilliant Pulitzer Prize winner, David K. Johnston. That's all tomorrow on this show.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
By the way, Mo Kelly joins tonight also. It should be fun.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
We're out of time. Until later tonight. Bye-bye.
Thank you.